Well, continuing with Lecture 12, Part 7, we just finished with the Munich Agreement and the annexation of the Sudetenland by Adolf Hitler. Let's get on with it, shall we? So all this is building up to an actual fighting war, okay? Shooting war, I should say. And World War II, after Hitler gobbles up the rest of Czechoslovakia, France and Great Britain very much realize that he cannot be trusted to keep his word. And the thing they're worried about is that the next thing Hitler has his sights on is Poland. Okay? More of that here in a second. Let me tell you now, Poland, I don't have a map right here, I don't think, in front of me on this slide. But Poland is one of these countries that's kind of gone in and out of existence over the centuries. I'm not very familiar with Polish history. No, I'm not familiar with Polish history at all. Now, there's a Polish people, they're ethnically Polish. But Poland is located in kind of a bad location. It's between Russia and Germany. Okay? And so the country's kind of come and gone, I guess, a few times. But it's been reestablished after World War I. Part of the land was taken from, Russia. Of course, Germany had already defeated Russia during World War I, and then some of it was carved out of Germany. So this Polish state exists. And Hitler has his eye on that. He says that the German people need living space. Okay? Alright. So Hitler's, maybe has his eye on Poland. French and the British, have obligations to help protect Poland, and having been burned over Czechoslovakia this time, we're not going to take Hitler at his word. Okay? The French and the British are putting, we're trying to also get the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union is located next to Poland, which is located next to Germany. We're trying to get the Soviet Union to also put pressure on Hitler. And so this is kind of what's going on. Well, there's just a few pictures, generic pictures of Nazis here. Let's see. There's Hitler, one of these big Nazi rallies. Seems huge. Some corruption in the file here. I have no idea who this is. Actually, I have an idea who this is, but I'm not sure. So I'll tell you. Just press forward. What we're worried about is the actual start of the war. Okay, so like Britain and France are determined they'll try to protect Poland. They're trying to get the Soviet Union to cooperate and put pressure on Germany as well. But here's where Hitler pulls fast with some diplomacy. He signs a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. Now this seems kind of a surprise because Hitler was not a big fan of communists. Okay? He didn't like Jews. He didn't like communists. Okay? But, much to a lot of folks' surprise, Hitler, Germans, and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact in 1939. Okay? Doesn't have a date on here. August, probably. Okay. So let's take a look at this here. Let's see. Yeah, this guy right here, guy smiling, Joseph Stalin. Okay, the ruthless leader of the Soviet Union. Okay. Not a nice guy. Just trust me on that. Now, this kind of surprises some folks. But here's the deal. All right. For this to make sense, let's crawl into the head of Joseph Stalin for a minute, which is a frightening place to be. But his job is to worry about the Soviet Union, not Poland, not France, not Great Britain. If the Germans are to invade Poland and the Soviet Union go to war with Germans, do you really have, if you're Joseph Stalin, do you really have confidence that the French and the British will follow up on their promises to invade Poland? No, I'm sorry, not to invade, to defend Poland. Okay? Probably not. Okay, I mean, you see what they've done. They've kind of turned a blind eye to what Hitler's been doing all along. They signed over the Sudetenland. If you're Joseph Stalin, you don't necessarily have any confidence that the British and the French will follow up. So to you, it seems like maybe a good idea to try to work out some kind of settlement with Germans. And the Non-Aggression Pact basically said that I think it was a period of 10 years, if I recall, that Germany and the Soviet Union would not take any hostile actions against each other. Now, some people argue that what the Soviets were doing here was buying some time. Hey, if we agree not to go to war with Hitler, for 10 years, it gives us time to build up our military. The Soviet military was not in good shape in a lot of ways because Stalin, who was always worried about there being a coup against him, had instituted these they called them blood purges in the 30s, and had cleaned out the Soviet officer corps, basically, of anyone who was seen as potentially disloyal. Now, buried in this agreement somewhere, because I've never read the thing, is there's kind of a wink and a nod that if the Germans do go in and gobble up Poland, that the Soviets can go in and kind of reclaim the part of Poland that they had lost after World War I, and kind of regain that territory. So basically what we have here is a pair of thieves agreeing to divide up the loot. Okay? So, with the Soviet Union off the table with this Non-Aggression Pact, Hitler can go ahead and go to war with Poland. There's a manufactured incident where the Polish supposedly attacked a German radio station or something like that. The whole thing's just a sham. It's a cover operation. And the Germans declare war on Poland. Assume they declared war. Anyway, they went in on September 1st, 1939, thus triggering what we generally think of as the beginning of World War II. Okay, there's a picture here. German troops in Poland. What crap. Yeah. Just trying to erase that circle. Well, the previous photo, which disappeared real quick due to my error, we saw the tanks rolling into Poland. There's a word that's commonly used for this. Just imagine tanks rolling into Poland. I'm not going to try to start this thing over again because it won't let me go back for some reason. It only lets me go forward. I guess because I'm narrating. Anyway, there's a word for this. It's called blitzkrieg. Lightning war. Krieg, war. Blitz, lightning. Lightning war. It's fast, it's furious, it's highly automated. There is some truth to this. And it's become such a common term as what people associate with the Germans. Armored thrusting columns penetrating deep in enemy territory, aircraft offering artillery type support, operating in lieu of artillery. Today we would call it combined arms. Okay? Fast, furious, it's unstoppable. But is it somewhat of a myth? Yes, it is. I actually read a whole book about this in one of my World War II classes. And we get down into the deeper levels that graduate students study at. Okay. So, like I said, I was supposed to be showing the picture of the tanks. Actually, I bypassed that. But let's look at this picture for a minute. Okay. What do you see here? Just a pen. How about this guy? What's he on? And here's some more here. Horses. Horses. The German army in 1939 is largely dependent on horsepower to move goods and materials, artillery, shells. Yes, they do have the armored forces. They have the tanks. They have the airplanes. Those do exist. Okay, and those are the shock troops that hit you hard. The follow-up troops, largely horse-drawn. There's a whole book about this that we read. It's called the Blitzkrieg myth. That is not totally untrue. Like all myths, it has some, well, not all good myths, it has some basis in reality. But it's exaggerated. Well, how did this come to pass? Well, German newsreel photographers, wanting to show the folks back home the military in all its glory, will fixate on the more exciting stuff, the tanks, the airplanes. There's also some psychological warfare going on here. You want your enemies to see you as this unstoppable, juggernaut of, armored vehicles and, fighter support, dive bombers. Um, Western journalists apparently actually came up with the word blitzkrieg to describe the situation when they were writing about it. And of course, they're going to focus on the shock elements. Okay? And so this myth or this idea of a blitzkrieg becomes like ingrained in people's heads. But in some ways, it's greatly exaggerated. The Germans are certainly more than willing to exaggerate and perpetrate the myth because they want their opponents to think that the German war machine is this unstoppable thing. And if you're a country that's been defeated by the Germans, it certainly can take solace. Hey, yeah, sure, we lost, but we were up against the unbeatable blitzkrieg. And so the blitzkrieg is not it's not false, but it maybe is not as prevalent as your average Joe on the street might think. All right. So if Poland invaded, the French and the British do honor their commitments. They do declare war on Germany, but nothing's really going to happen. Very sad. Let's see what's next. We can get it's a blank slide. Let's start again. All right. FDR. Hey, this is a U.S. history class, right? What is the President of the United States thinking about all this? Getting the time clock here. Let's go. We'll finish after we'll put G on the next one. FDR's position in war in Europe. He thinks Hitler and Germany is a threat to the world, and then indirectly, eventually, to the United States. He's also the leader of a country that is largely isolationist in its viewpoint. The American public, still dealing with the Great Depression and having been burned by their participation in World War I, really has no interest in getting involved in a general European conflict. But Roosevelt sees that, this is a problem. So what he's got to do is somehow start trying to slowly but surely shift public opinion to the idea of standing up to the Germans, that America might have a role to play in this thing. We might have to get involved. But he can't just come out and say that. People are going to react negatively. So what Roosevelt will do is he'll stretch the truth a little bit, from time to time. He might even tell a half-truth, which is not necessarily a lie, because the president would never lie to you, would he? And Roosevelt will bend the neutrality rules to the point of breaking as he tries to find ways to deal with this crisis. So he's got sometimes, and this is a philosophical question you can ask yourself. Think about it as you're at Starbucks. When they reopen the Starbucks and you're sitting there drinking the Frappuccino, do you want the president to just do everything the public opinion calls for? He's supposed to be working for the will of the voters, right? That's a good idea. Or sometimes also he has to be a leader. And sometimes being a leader means taking people in a direction they don't want to go. There is no right answer to this question. It's something we can discuss, but you really can't sort it out. Maybe you can, but you can talk about it. But yeah, Roosevelt will be kind of deceptive to the U.S. population, maybe. Kind of like I said, hide some things, exaggerate some things, as he tries to get ready for what could be coming. Which brings us back to the question, should the president ever lie to you? Morally, I would say no. It's never a good idea to lie. So let me ask you this. Is it okay to lie to save the world from Nazism?